Hello, and welcome to the BMC Quick Course Series. My name is Sam Antone, and I'm a Principal Software Consultant based in Southern California. In this session, I will provide an overview and some of the benefits of NGT Load. In addition, I'll provide a couple of examples of the use of the load utility. There are many options with the share level and resume replace parameters depending on where they are used. You also have the option to use both resume and replace options that allow you to add data to some parts while replacing others. I will provide an example of this option later in the video. NGT Load can accept multiple input formats. By default, format DSN-TIAUL is assumed, but delimited and unload is also acceptable. The unload format is comparable to the IBM unload format. At times, there are input records that may be in error or don't belong to the targeted part. These records will be discarded to an output file for examination. If the data is not in sorted order, the order by can be used. Another option is to update the DB2 catalog statistics during the load. This option adds little extra overhead to the load process, but could eliminate an additional run stat step. Although there are many automatic conversion options with NGT Load, one option that many customers have found very helpful is the ability to convert the RBA LRSN from basic to expanded format. You can use the where clause to identify records for acceptance to the load for processing. The copy is another option that reduces the overall overhead by creating an image copy during the load process and eliminating the copy pending status. If you are sure the input data is valid with respect to the referential integrity on the table, using the check pending parameter will eliminate the outage due to having to run the check data utility. The order by option allows the data to be loaded in the right sequence, reducing the need for a reorg after the load. The preformat option instructs NGT Load to preformat all the pages, which help the performance of future inserts. I'm going to do it again. NGT automatically uses maximum parallelism and zip engines to reduce both elapsed time and CPU. NGT Load is designed to use the least amount of resources and complete in the shortest amount of time possible. In doing so, NGT Load will multitask and run multiple processes simultaneously in order to complete as quickly as possible. If you have a very large amount of data to load and it is in multiple concatenated files, use the max task parameter to specify how many of those files you want NGT Load to read in parallel. Use the max task option to limit parallel sysrec readers. With other load utility products, a failed load resume process almost always results in an outage and a recovery. However, NGT Load resume was designed as a non-destructive load. For load resume, the data is loaded beyond the tablespace high used RBA, and the indexes are loaded at a shadow copy. Upon successful completion, the high-used RBA is moved and the indexes are fast switched. If the load is unsuccessful, NGT Load only has to delete the index shadow datasets and the table is how we found it. You will not have to recover to get back to where you started. There are several options with the load resume. In the first example, the share level change option is specified. Share level change instructs NGT Load to pass the data to DB2 to insert the data, which automatically results in logging of each insert. However, in many cases this is a very good method if you are inserting just a few rows into a large table. By logging these inserts, the user could avoid the need for an image copy of the entire table space, as well as avoiding the possibility of setting the check pending flag if there is RI on the table. In the second example, share level reference is used, but also notice the part and replace options in the second line. The SHRLEVEL reference option instructs NGT Load to create shadow copies of the parts we are loading as well as any non-partition indices that may exist. Because we are loading into a shadow copy, the parts to be loaded will be placed in read-only status, while the rest of the partitions will remain in read-write. This is of great value to the application, as the rest of the partitions will continue to be available. The Part and Replace options instructs NGT Load to replace all the data in the listed parts with new data. Any updates that occur during the load to parts that are not in the list will be captured and the shadow and NPIs will be updated. When the load completes successfully, for a brief moment the table space is placed in stopped status and fast switch is executed to replace the listed parts as well as all the NPIs. By specifying SHRLEVEL change on the load command, NGT Load places the table space or partitions in read-write status before the start of the load process. Shadow copies of all partitions and NPIs are created. Because it's a load replace, all the data will be replaced by the input dataset. Any updates that occur during the load process are applied to the original objects but not to the shadow copies. When the load is successful, fast switch is executed. This example is similar to the previous one only by the parameter SHRLEVEL change, which keeps the table space in read-write status. However, it differs from the previous one in two ways. First, the placement of the replace option is after the into table parameter. This indicates that the load resume default is used. Second, the part option is used here. The placement of the replace parameter with the part parameter, in addition to the SHRLEVEL change option, instructs NGT Load to keep the table in read-write, creating shadow copies of part 4 as well as all the non-partition indices. Only part 4 will be replaced, while all the other parts will continue to be updated. All updates that occur during the load process will be applied to the shadow NPIs. Upon successful completion of the load, fast switch will be executed to replace part 4 as well as all the other NPIs. The OBID option specifies the OBID of the table you are loading. This option overrides the row selection process used when loading rows using format unload. Specify a valid OBID value in decimal format. Omitting the OBID option will result in an NGT load assuming that the OBID in the input file match the OBID for the target table. NGT Load will discard any rows where the OBID does not match target. Specifying OBID 0 will ignore the OBID and load all rows. One other option customers have found very helpful is the ability to convert from basic to expanded RBA LRSN. RBA LRSN underscore conversion enables you to convert the DB2 RBA and LRSN between basic, which is 6 bytes, and extended, which is 10 byte formats. The RBA LRSN underscore conversion keyword must immediately follow the replace keyword. If you specify RBA LRSN underscore conversion none, NGT Load will not perform the conversion. However, the behavior will depend on the DB2 ZParm utility underscore object underscore conversion subsystem parameter. If you specify none and have the utility underscore object underscore conversion parameter set to no basic, and the object is in basic format, the object fails the load. NGT Load has many conversion options available. This is a list of some of the automatic conversion attributes available. In Chapter 3 of the NGT Load reference manual, there is a similar table that contains the load conversion attributes with every release of NGT Load. Although NGT Load can handle many of the conversions automatically, there are times when there is a need to convert a column that is not done automatically. NGT Load provides the option to use the IGNOREFIELDS parameter, which allows the user to convert columns any way they would like. In this example, we are converting a column called COL01 from timestamp to character by creating a temporary column called temp01, then using it in the value portion of the statement. In addition, the ignore fields could also be used to ignore a field if the source and the target don't match exactly. NGT Load performs many functionalities that aren't available in other load utilities. One very beneficial feature is that in the majority of load options, the indices will be reorganized. Even on a load resume where the utility is loading only one partition, the non-partition indices will be in organized state since NGT Load is creating shadow copies of these indices. This is very beneficial to applications because indices usually need reorganization after a load. In addition, NGT Load goes through multiple checks to confirm the input data is valid for both the indices as well as the table itself. NGT Load checks the integrity of the data to ensure there are no duplicate keys that will be inserted. These duplicate records are discarded to a dataset that could be examined at a later time. The non-destructive method used by NGT Load reduces or eliminates the possibility of putting the table in recovery state, which provides the greatest amount of availability of the data. The enforce option is also available to ensure constraints on columns are enforced. Thank you for your time. For more information on any BMC mainframe product, please visit the URL shown here.